Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allah Ta'ala is not a jism, He is not a body, and He is unlike His creation. There are certain verses in the Holy Quran which are known as mutashabihat, allegorical verses, which are unclear and we are not sure of their true meaning. Now, what certain misguided people did with these verses, for instance, these verses which refer to al-istiwa, Allah being established on the throne or towards the heavens, Yadullah, which literally means hand of Allah, Wajhullah, which literally means the face of Allah. What certain misguided people did with these verses, they took them literally, and by taking them literally, they became anthropomorphists, mujassima, those who do tajassim and ascribe a body to Allah, because Allah is free from having a body. So when these verses are referring to Yadullah, Wajhullah, which in the literal sense mean hand of Allah, face of Allah, etc., then to take the literal meaning is totally incorrect. And these people are also known as mushabbiha. Mushabbiha is the sect which does tashbih, likens Allah to His creation. So when they deviated and did this, then this caused the Ahlul Sunnah, the true Sunni Muslims, to give figurative interpretation, ta'wil of these verses, to explain these verses as being metaphorical in their meaning. So for instance, when it says hand of Allah, it is taken to mean the power of Allah. If it says face of Allah, it refers to the essence of Allah, and so on. So these verses are not to be taken literally. Going back in time, the early Muslims, the Salaf, those were the first generations, and amongst them there were those who are known as the Atharīs. Now the Atharī school is of the early Hanbalis and others as well, who simply relied on Athar, the traditions. They relied on the Quran and the Hadith, and what they did with these mutashabihat, unclear allegorical verses, they simply believed them and left their meaning to Allah. That is called tafweed, leaving the meaning to Allah. So they said, we believe it all, it is from Allah, but we don't try to explain how He is established on the throne, for instance, what it means by Yadullah or Wajhullah. But they didn't go and give literal meanings and then start to say Allah has a hand, Allah has a face, Allah has, body parts. This was valid. Then came the anthropomorphists, those who are known as the mujassima, mushabbiha, who ascribed body and likened Allah to His creation. Na'udzubillah, they were misguided. The second understanding, wrong. Then came the understanding of the Khalaf, the later Sunni scholars. This included the Ash'ari and Māturīdī schools. What these scholars did, they interpreted these verses as metaphorical. So when we look back, then we understand in this broad sense. Now, the Wahhābīs or Salafīs of this day and age, unfortunately, they take a very literalist and rigid approach, like the Mushabbiha and Mujassima, and therefore they ascribe body to Allah and liken Him to His creation. Now, they also claim to be ardent followers of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, but they also oppose giving any form of ta'wil, metaphorical explanation to these attributes, because they take them strictly literally. The hand as hand, face as face. And when Allah is mentioning about being istiwa, established towards the heavens or upon the throne, they say He's literally like sitting on the throne, He's literally up in the heavens. So when they do this, what they do is they ascribe directions, limitations and place to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of which is misguidance and heresy. Now, they oppose ta'wil, and therefore they attack the Ash'aris and Māturīdīs, the traditional Sunnis, who gave metaphorical explanations to some of these verses of the Quran. The Salafīs and Wahhābīs attack these as being wrong and misguided. But I have here Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya of Ibn Kathir, and in here, in the 10th volume on page 348, he mentions regarding Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah that he also did ta'wil and gave metaphorical explanation to the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran mentioned here. He says, وَرَوَى الْبَيْهَقِيُّ عَنِ الْحَاكِمِ عن أبي عمرو بن السماك عن حنبل أن أحمد بن حنبل تأول قول الله تعالى وجاء ربك أنه جاء ثوابه ثم قال البيهقي وهذا إسناد لا غبار عليه. He mentions that Imam Bayhaqi narrates with an authentic chain going back to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal alayhi rahmah, and this mentions here that Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal gave a metaphorical explanation to Surah 89 verse number 22 when Allah mentions وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ, that your Lord will come, referring to Judgment Day. It doesn't literally mean that your Lord will come himself. It means أَنَّهُ جَاءَ ثَوَابُهُ, that his reward will come on the Day of Judgment. So this proves emphatically that Imam Ahmad, he also performed ta'wil, figurative interpretation, and if it was invalid and incorrect, what will the Wahhābīs and Salafīs say about Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal here, who clearly gives figurative interpretation of the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is Ta'wilatu Ahli Sunnah, the tafsir of Imam Abu Mansur Māturīdī rahimahullahu ta'ala. In this commentary, he mentions under Surah number 2 verse 29 in Surah Baqarah, when Allah mentions ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, that then he established himself towards the heavens. That's the literal meaning, but Imam Māturīdī explains we do not take it literally. He says فَيَكُونُ مَوْصُوفًا بِعُلُوِّهِ عَلَى التَّعَالَى عَنِ الْأَمْكِنَةِ, that Allah is described with highness upon being exalted from places, meaning he is not restricted by places. وَأَنَّهُ عَلَى مَا كَانَ قَبْلَ كَوْنِ الْأَمْكِنَةِ, and he is the way he was before there were any places. So as mentioned in previous discourse, that the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was before he created any places, he is the same now. And because Allah is eternal, he is qadim with no beginning and no ending, he doesn't change. So we cannot say now he's in a place, now he's everywhere, now he's above, he's here, there. We can't put these restrictions on him, because before he created any places, he didn't have these restrictions. So how can he have these restrictions now? You would be ascribing change to him, but he is eternal, and any change to the one who is eternal is impossible. So change, taghayyur, only happens to those things which are hadith, which before they were ma'doom, non-existent, later they became mawjood, existent. So the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that changes, but Allah and his attributes never change. So Allah was the way, he is the way he was before he created places. Now he is not limited by places. Imam Māturīdī says وَهُوَ فَوْقَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ أي بالغلبة والقدرة والجلال عن الأمكنة ولا قوة إلا بالله. He says, and Allah is above everything, meaning in dominion, in power, and in being exalted beyond places, and there is no power except with Allah. وأصله ما ذكرنا ألا نقدر فعله بفعل الخلق ولا وصفه بوصف الخلق لأنه أخبر أنه ليس كمثله شيء. He says, and in principle, it is like what we have mentioned, that we do not describe, we do not explain his actions as being like the actions of creation, nor do we ascribe to him an attribute with like the attribute of his creation. And this is because he, Most High Allah, has told us in Surah 42 verse 11, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ, there is nothing like him. So again, Imam Māturīdī also doing ta'wil there of al-istiwa, the establishment of Allah upon the throne, is not in a physical sense, but it means like control, power and dominion, etc. The great Ash'ari Mufassir and scholar Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi rahimahullah ta'ala, under the commentary of Surah 2 in Surah Baqarah, verse 115. This is a Tafsir al-Kabir, and in this verse when Allah mentions فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, that whichever way you turn there will be wajhullah, which literally means the face of Allah. Now Imam Razi explains we do not take the literal understanding. Why? فَلَمَّا نَصَّ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى ذَلِكَ عَلَّمَنَا أَنَّهُ تَعَالَى مُنَزَّهٌ عَنِ الْجِسْمِيَّةِ, that when Allah explained here this fact that wherever you may be, wherever you turn, you will find there will be the wajhullah. He says what it means here is that Allah is free from all places. Allah is not restricted by any places. Then he refutes the Mujassima, those who ascribe a body to Allah and a place to Allah. He refutes them by saying, by first of all mentioning their incorrect position, he refutes them and says, فَإِذَا لَا بُدَّ فِيهِ مِنَ التَّأْوِيلِ وَهُوَ مِنْ وُجُوهٍ. He says, because the literalists took this verse literally and started saying as though Allah has a face, he says it has to be understood with different explanations. One of them he gives, الأول أن إضافة وجه الله كإضافة بيت الله وناقة الله والمراد منها الإضافة بالخلق والإيجاد على سبيل التشريف. He says that when it mentions like face of Allah, it is similar to when he mentions the house of Allah, the camel of Allah. And it's not in a physical sense, it's in a sense that some creation is attributed towards the Creator in order to ennoble that creation. So that house becomes blessed, so that camel becomes blessed, in order to bless them and give them higher status. In that sense. الثاني, secondly, he mentions أن يكون المراد من الوجه القصد والنية. He says secondly, al-wajh here can mean that the purpose and intention. Again, not the physical meaning. الثالث مرضات الله رضوان الله رضا الله. It can mean the consent of Allah, Allah being pleased, Allah his consent and his contentment. And then الرابع أن الوجه صلة, that al-wajh means a link towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then again he mentions here importantly مع أنه لا يجوز عليه المكان فلا بد من تأويله بأن المراد فثم قبلته التي يعبد بها أو ثم رحمته ونعمته وطريق ثوابه والتماس مرضاته. That it is impossible for Allah to be restricted by places, by a place. Therefore it is necessary to explain it as meaning that wherever you may be, there will be the Qibla. There will be the Qibla of Allah. The Qibla of Allah, and He is worshipped by it. He is worshipped by facing towards the Qibla. Or that you will find the mercy of Allah and the favor of Allah and the path towards His reward and the path by which you can cling to His contentment and seek His contentment and His rida. So this is what it means, but it doesn't mean in a physical sense that He has a face or that He is physically above, as mentioned in the earlier tafsir, and importantly in tafsir al-Tabari. Now Imam Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari rahimahullah ta'ala, he is often quoted by Salafīs and Wahhābīs, and his tafsir here of this verse which I will mention now is very crucial and very important for us, because he also does ta'wil, figurative interpretation. He wasn't a literalist like the Salafīs and Wahhābīs. Under the verse in Surah 51 verse 47, Allah Ta'ala mentions وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ, that the heavens we made them, and we made them with the hand. That's the literal meaning, بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ, and we made it vast. Now What does it mean though? Imam Tabari says, وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعْنَاهَا سَقَفًا بِقُوَّةٍ. He says that the heavens, we raised them like a ceiling, like a roof, with quwwah, with power. So it doesn't mean bi'aidin with a physical hand. He explains that aid, the physical hand, not the physical hand. He explains hand as meaning power. And then he mentions here, وَبِنَحْوِ الَّذِي قُلْنَا فِي ذَلِكَ قَالَ أَهْلُ التَّأْوِيلِ. And the explanation that we have given here, it is like what the people of interpretation, the Ahlul Ta'wil, do. That's the Ash'aris and Māturīdīs. And then he mentions importantly a riwayat from, he mentions 6 narrations, 6 different chains going back to Hazrat Ibn Abbas, Hazrat Mujahid, Hazrat Qatada, Hazrat Mansur, Hazrat Ibn Zayd, and Hazrat Sufyan radiyallahu anhum, that in this verse bi'aidin is bima'na biquwwatin, that with the hand, what it literally means, actually means with power. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heavens with power, and it does not mean a physical hand. So this is the tafsir al-Tabari. Now from this we can understand, we can see even those who the Wahhābīs and Salafīs look up to and admire and take their religion from. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he did ta'wil, figurative interpretation. So did Imam Tabari. What will they say regarding them? Will they say they are misguided like the Ash'aris and Māturīdīs, who they slander, who the Wahhābīs and Salafīs slander today? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala safeguard us from their misguidance. So there are 3 understandings. Number 1, with these allegorical mutashabihat verses. Number 1, you can just believe them and not try to give them a meaning and say, I confine the meaning to Allah. That is known as doing tafweed. That is correct. That's like the early Muslims, the Salaf did, and so did the Atharī school. The Atharī, those who relied on the Quran and Hadith and the narrations, the Athar, and simply believed and did not dabble into the mutashabihat. Number 2, you can follow the way of the Khalaf, the latter Sunni scholars, the Ash'ari and Māturīdī schools. This is also valid, whereby Yadullah is explained as power of Allah. Wajhullah is explained as, for instance, the contentment of Allah, the consent of Allah, etc. And Al-Istiwa, the establishment, is explained as dominion and power, etc. So these kind of meanings can also be given. These meanings are in accordance to the muhkam verses of Al-Quran Al-Karim, the clear verses of Al-Quran Al-Karim, which are the usul and the foundation of our religion. And when you fall into the 3rd group, which is the deviated group, they took these mutashabihat allegorical verses as literal. They said hand means hand of Allah, face means face of Allah. Allah is established on a throne. He's like sitting on a throne, and he is like up towards the heavens physically in that direction. Now when the mushabbiha did this, they did tashbih, likened Allah to his creation. The mujassima, giving Allah a jism, doing tajasim. And then the Wahhabīs and Salafīs do the same thing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from their misguidance.